Alright, so previously I talked about the beginning of the war, basically everything leading up to the war. I talked about Lexington and Concord, shot heard around the world. You guys remember that? Um, I talked about Ticonderoga, and that's about as far as we got last time. So I'm going to continue on here with, well, Battle of New York, I guess, is next. Alright, so Battle of New York. General Howe was in command of the force. It landed on Manhattan, where General George Washington was actually stationed with his soldiers at Fort Washington, which was in Manhattan. Excuse me. Washington's force was pretty much beaten on Manhattan, and actually they retreated to what is now known as Harlem Heights, which is northern Manhattan. And basically they were attacked again by Howe, who wanted to finish off, he wanted to capture Washington, and they held the ground. It was a small skirmish. It wasn't an actual real battle. It was just a small skirmish, and Washington and his forces, they held the ground. The British actually they took Fort Washington. Washington wasn't actually in there. They captured about 1,000 soldiers there, and basically that's where the entire prison ship begins. Where the British would actually they would take American, or they take prisoners of war, and they put them on ships and basically just leave them there. Terrible conditions, you can imagine, stuffed in a ship. With other people, a lot of disease going around, probably very little food, maybe even rotten food that they gave them. I'm not totally sure on that issue. But basically, Howe missed his opportunity. He was going to attack Washington again. He decides against it. Washington and his force actually they cross the water and get to the mainland, and they head south. And Howe missed his opportunity to take Washington. He missed his opportunity to capture Washington, and that was definitely a blow, probably to Howe himself, because he had Washington in his grasp, cornered Washington, didn't finish the job. It's probably a blow to him. Alright, moving on. Trenton. This is a painting of Washington. He's crossing the Delaware River. It's a very famous painting. You see all the ice in the water right down here. It was Christmas Day, I think, Christmas night actually. So yeah, frigid water. Crosses it. It was very dangerous to traverse the water, especially frozen. But he does it. He's able to get to Trenton, which is under the command of Johann Rall. Please forgive my pronunciation on that. He's German. I'm not sure if I pronounce it right. I don't really know. I'm assuming Johann Rall. Christmas 1775, I believe. And basically, Johann Rall is in command of about 1,000, anywhere from 1,000 to 1,400 Hessian forces in the city of Trenton, modern-day New Jersey. And basically, he requested reinforcements a few days before. The person that he requested reinforcements from was General James Grant. General James Grant didn't think very much of the revolutionists. He didn't think very much of the rebels, as they're often referred to as. He didn't think very much of them. He thought that they were incapable of doing anything, especially taking Trenton. Trenton didn't have any fortifications, but General Grant, didn't think that they were capable of anything. So Rahl requested reinforcements a few days prior to the attack on Trenton, and was denied reinforcements by General Grant because Grant believed the rebels were not capable. He believed they were incapable of anything because, remember, prior to this, there really hadn't been many victories for the Americans. They lost at every turn. They lost New York City right off the bat, the most valuable city, well, arguably the most valuable city in the colonies, one of the largest cities in the colonies, a very strategic location at the mouth of the Hudson River. And they basically, they lost it in the beginning of the war. They did attack Quebec earlier on, completely failed. They did manage to take Ticonderoga and had some victories along the way, but Ticonderoga wasn't really a major victory. It wasn't really a superior major victory. So to this point, the Americans hadn't really done anything. Grant believed, incapable. Trenton was definitely a surprise attack. It was the middle of the night, Christmas Day, and they surprised the Hessians who had, they weren't expecting an attack. They had eaten their Christmas feast, and the majority of the Hessians were fast asleep. Washington arrives, and basically he takes the city without too much of a fight. The Hessians do scramble to fight back, but the element of surprise definitely on Washington's side. They figured, he wouldn't cross the Delaware River. They knew he was on the other side. They figured he wouldn't cross the Delaware River. Another big factor, he left his campfires burning back at camp before he left, so that if they did look out, they would see the fires and believe he's still at camp, and they did believe he was still at camp. But Grant denying reinforcements to Rahl basically ensured defeat at Trenton. Nobody was expecting an attack. And another big factor here is the people, deserters in the American ranks actually went to Rahl, basically told Rahl that there would be an invasion of Trenton. There was a plan to invade Trenton. All these deserters, basically, they come to Rahl, they tell him there's a plan to take Trenton. Rahl dismisses this. He doesn't believe it, and it definitely comes back to haunt him. But he didn't believe in basically the traitors. But you got to think about it by his perspective. His perspective here is that the Americans could have basically sent them there to say that they had deserted and that there was an attack on Trenton when there wasn't really an attack on Trenton. It's possible. You got to think like that if you're a general and expecting an attack possibly at some point in time, not on Christmas. It definitely wasn't expecting on Christmas. Which brings me to the Battle of Saratoga. Battle of Saratoga is definitely credited as the first major victory of the American colonists in the Revolutionary War. It is the turning point of the war. Alright? Basically, after Saratoga, the French, they were trying to get the French. They had Benjamin Franklin over there as an ambassador to France, and he was trying to get the French to join on the American side. Spain, France, and the United Provinces, or the Netherlands as they become the Dutch, they basically are providing arms secretly to the American colonists since the beginning, because they don't want the British to win. They want some of the spoils from war. We'll continue on the Battle of Saratoga in part 3. See you then.